I am a big fan of anything that on paper shouldn't go well together, but when you put them together, it ends up going really well together.
Welcome to Currently the Conversation, brought to you by TVC Cherry Capital Airport, your Northern Michigan connection. Today we're welcoming one of Northern Michigan's most innovative musicians. Tony Manfredonia is a composer, singer-songwriter, and orchestrator whose work has been performed by major orchestras, featured in video games, including Minecraft, and now he's bringing an extraordinary concert to the City Opera House that blends pop songwriting with the power of a full symphonic ensemble. Tony, welcome to the conversation. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you, Christal. I'm happy to be here.
Oh
Thank
my
you.
gosh. I just have to say, first of all, and I said this to you before we started recording, but Minecraft.
Yep.
Every parent that's listening, and likely a lot of adults now, are going, oh yeah, I know Minecraft. And I had to thank you because having two boys growing up in my house, I saw a lot of Minecraft. And I used to comment about, well, the songs are lovely. Yeah. The music is lovely.
It is.
You know, yes, the kids are on the video games and sometimes you're kind of yelling and things like that, but the lovely music.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Yeah. It was a really fun contribution when they asked me to just do, it was a small fraction of the bigger Minecraft picture, but it was such a blast. So thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Now, you have described yourself as someone who likes to bridge worlds through music. What does that mean to you?
So I am a big fan of anything that on paper shouldn't go well together, but when you put them together, it ends up going really well together.
I love this.
I'm a big fan, right? Anything that I can if it means, I don't know, a rock song with an orchestra or even hip hop or rap, but you got an orchestra in there. I love that kind of stuff. Yeah. I love it. And what's interesting is I think musical theater does this really well, but I want to bring it outside of the musical theater space. I'm a theater boy. I grew up doing musical theater, right? You can probably tell just by the way I talk. But I want to bring that idea just to just concerts, right? Yeah. And more I've been very inspired by pop artists like Leve. She's an Icelandic, great jazz kind of musician and singer-songwriter. And Cody Fry is another name. He does the whole orchestra pop thing. And I've been seeing more and more of that. And I said, I don't see this happening anywhere in Michigan. I want to kind of help it. I want to see this grow, right? Because that's also my language. That's my love language. It's I want to sing and play, but also have a big orchestra with me, you know?
Yeah.
That's my thing.
Well, I want to kind of take you back to when you were young. I mean, when did you first realize that music wasn't just something you liked? When did you realize that it was something that you were kind of meant to do?
That is a great question. So I didn't start writing music until I was about 16 or 17. I was a late bloomer to writing music.
Okay.
Now my mom is a pianist. My dad played guitar and sang. My siblings were musicians, piano and singing and stuff. So it was kind of in the family. It was just sort of something that happened in our living room, But beyond that, it was when I started writing my own music with multiple influences, mind you. My mom was really into classical music, and my brother and we were really into video game soundtracks, and my dad was like Frank Sinatra.
Right.
So I had this melting pot of J.S. Bach and Frank Sinatra and Koji Kondo, who did the music for Super Mario and stuff. That was my musical taste. Right. And I also really loved Coldplay growing up. Right. So I still do. I'm still the #1 fan. They just don't know it. So I had all this stuff that when I actually sat down to write my own music, it wasn't just simple, I guess. And so my music theory teacher was in high school, she said, you should just actually go to school for music because this stuff is not just kind of basic 4-chord progressions, and not that there's anything wrong with that. I think there's power and simplicity. But I also think she was you really should study classical music. And it was actually when I went off to music school that I fell even deeper in love with it because I was so naive to it all. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just I like making stuff. But it was when I was in school that I said, this kind of confirmed it, right? It kind of confirmed it for me. I didn't want to do anything else.
Yeah.
So anything I could do after graduating music school, if it was something musically tangential to music, I was I'm in, right? Yeah. Whether that's orchestrating for somebody, writing my own thing, arranging for a string quartet, whatever it was. I was I just want to be doing music, period.
Yeah.
And I think that then sort of led me to learn all these different skills, which I'm sort of bringing into this concert.
First of all, I just want to say that I'm so pleased that you know the name of the the person who wrote all the music for Super Mario Brothers, like off the cuff. You're like, of course I do. Because also that is very deeply ingrained in me as well. So you would say that performing then came first for you. I mean, you were a musical theater kid. You know, almost music was a part of your DNA in your house. And then composing was something that you discovered a little later.
Right. And it's kind of come full circle, correct? Because that, like, my first entry point was, you know, whether it was school concerts or open mics, just acoustic piano and singing. But I always had a deep love for the orchestra, right? So, and I think it was a performance of a Coldplay played at the Grammys in 2003. They had a song on their second album. The song was called Politic, and they played it with an orchestra. And I remember seeing this much later on YouTube or something and being like, I really like that. I don't know what's happening. I like it. And so when I went off to school for composition, you know, I learned all the classical stuff, you know, arranging for all these instrumentalists. One thing led to another. I ended up doing video game soundtracks, and then that sort of became my bread and butter. And life just got busy, right? I graduated, I got married, and life just happened. And then it was about a few years ago that I said, you know, my entry point was singing and performing. I was like, I really miss it.
Yeah.
You know, so it was about 2022, 2023 or so that I said, I want to bring this back as like, this is what I'm about, but I want to bring everything that I learned along the way with me, right? Hence the orchestral flair.
Exactly. Right? Which is one thing that I really think stands out in your music is that it refuses to fit neatly into one genre. Like, I mean, and as you're telling the story, I know that sort of happened naturally, but was there ever some pressure that someone said, you can only be this?
Yeah. I mean, and forgive me if I get a little emotional. Yeah, because that was kind of the story of my life.
Yeah.
I think music school, it was very much like, well, why are you listening to Coldplay? They're not as good as this so-and-so, or, you know, you should be listening to this. And then even in the video game music sphere, I mean, I love so many of the people that I've worked with and all the people that I've connected with, but there were some individuals along the way who said, why are you doing the singing thing? You get to just sit in your room and make music behind the scenes. No one has to see you. So I think there was always this stuff of like, I didn't really want to be seen because people were telling me not, and I was a pretty vulnerable kid. You know, I didn't have I had a tough time as a kid, you know? And so I think it was those external voices kind of dictated my life for a long time. So that's why coming back to the singing and really making this what I'm about with the orchestral element, right? It doesn't fit neatly into anything, but I feel like it's always sort of who I've always been, but I was always too afraid to really say it until now.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah.
Well, people can be so unforgiving when it comes to anyone, like who is either switching genres or, you know, wants to do something other than that lane that they chose maybe as a young person. I don't know what that is. I mean, everyone from fans to people in the industry, it's like everyone is being told, this is what you do, stay here.
Right.
When in reality, we're all humans, right? And we contain multitudes. You know?
Oh, that's the thing. Yeah, the multifaceted output. And that's why, you know, I still do the video game soundtrack stuff. I'll probably be doing that for as long as people are coming to me to do it because I like it. I like doing it. But there has certainly been that. It took me a while to really get over that hump of like, it's okay that you are the way you are, Tony. Like, it's okay. Embrace it. Go full force, right? And I feel actually way more at peace by just embracing it. And if someone has an issue with it, it's like, okay. But here's all these other people who are loving it, right?
Right. And, you know, it's interesting, though, when I really think about all this stuff that you've done. I mean, you're a musical storyteller, and you have many stories that you tell. And I would assume the same thing happens with people in you know, who are writers, who want to write multiple kinds of genres. They're not just going to write a mystery novel. Maybe they want to write a memoir, whatever that looks like. And that's where your songs really, I mean, it's an emotional experience. Could you walk us through that process?
Sure.
When the inspiration strikes, I mean, does the melody come first? Do you think about lyrics when you're talking about singer-songwriter? Is it an emotion you're trying to capture? What comes first?
Yeah, I feel like it depends on what I'm trying to do, right? So when I first got back into releasing some albums and singles and things a few years back, I think those songs were sort of from almost like, here's all the stories that I didn't tell for the last 10 years that I wanted to tell. So a lot of those earlier songs, even if you go to my Spotify and you listen to these songs, they're very personal. They're quite melancholy. They're kind of depicting sort of a bit more tumultuous times in my life. But then I feel like it's sort of caught up to now. And now it feels more Like the stories I'm telling now are much more what I'm being inspired by today, or the stories I want to share about today.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I'm in my 30s, so now a lot of the songs and even songs that'll be doing at the concert are kind of about like what it feels like to be in your 30s, right?
Yeah.
Like sort of, well, those young days are behind you and you're kind of settling down, So now it's like, oh my gosh, I feel so old singing about like the stuff that when I was young, I'm like, gosh, why is Billy Joel singing about that? Who cares, I just want something fun. But now I get it, yeah. So now it's all sort of caught up. So inspiration, I think it strikes when it strikes.
Yeah.
And it really just depends on, I think most of my ideas, whether it's I'm walking and humming something or sitting in my studio and just noodling on the piano and something sticks, I often try to let the music determine what the story needs to be. So if something feels really joyful, I'm like, okay, well, what has been joyful in my life lately? And I lean into that. If something feels a bit more somber and slow and melancholy, I'm like, okay, well, what might be triggering that? So I go down that rabbit hole.
Nice.
So I think the musical idea, the melody, harmony, all that, often determines what is this song going to be about for me. Not always, but I would say 9 times out of 10. That's usually how it goes.
I'm thinking again about, the work you've done for Minecraft, for the Outer Worlds too. It's interesting to me because if people don't understand the new world of video games, they might not understand the complexity. These stories are very complex. I remember my son was playing like a Star Wars video game years ago, and it was a very complex game, and he was in tears by something that had happened in the story of the game, and it was music inspired, and he's like, the music swelled up, and I mean, you're really like the interesting thing about creating music for video games is that it is a truly immersive experience. Most people are listening in and playing on headphones, and you're in it.
Right.
So how much, when you're thinking about that and you understand the story that is happening there, that's how do you do that? There's no words.
Yeah.
How do you do that? And yet here's my, at the time, like 14-year-old son who's in tears, and it was musically driven.
Right.
I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it really is remarkable. And I have to say, I mean, there are so many composers, video game composers that I know who are just so good at that. They're so good at that. And there are times, I mean, I work largely with what they call indie video game developers, right? So obviously Minecraft is like what they would call AAA, or The Outer Worlds 2. That was, a pretty big studio.
Pretty big, yeah.
But most of my day in, day out are these smaller, almost like indie films for those, who may not know the video game scene. And it's like, I feel like I do a pretty good job, and the people who work with me, they like it. But sometimes I listen to some music, like you said, like these Star Wars, like these amazing games. I'm like, man, these composers are great, Yeah. Names like Austin Wintory comes to mind. For anyone out there who's interested in video game music, Austin Wintory is just astoundingly good at somehow capturing the visuals perfectly. So for me, I try to just see, again, I go back into emotion, right? What is the emotional story being told, either in this part of the game or in the sequence of the game, or even just, if it's not even emotion, but it's more so atmosphere. Yeah. Are you in a cave or are you out in a field?
Yeah.
Right? Anyone listening can think about, okay, what would cave music sound like versus what would, a volcano sound like? They're like a little bit, they're different, right?
Definitely.
Volcano feels like big and powerful. Cave feels more like maybe dark and spooky. And it's like kind of just turning that into, and that's where the music theory knowledge comes into play, right? Like that's where just doing it over and over and over, okay, someone asked me to do some cave music. Oh, okay, I sort of know what harmonies to kind of go toward.
Right.
Or what instruments to use. Or what reverb settings I want, Like that just comes in time and practice.
So I'm here with Kevin Klein, who is the executive director of TVC Cherry Capital Airport. And Kevin, people love to travel, but not everybody is very good at traveling. I'm sorry to say it, but what are some of your travel tips from Kevin's Corner?
Plan on being early.
Yeah.
Plan coming 2 hours early. We've got lots of great things to do for you. But the reason you want to plan to come in early is if you're checking bags, the bag cutoffs for most airlines are 45 minutes prior to departure. Each airline has different policies, so check that with your airline. But being there through the line to make sure your bag is back and being screened 45 minutes before departure, you have to plan for that. You can't come just at 45 minutes prior to. So you check in plenty of time early, and then I always say, bring your patience.
Yeah, preparation, planning, patience. Just a few travel tips with Kevin Klein. Now, how can people find you?
They can find us at tvcairport.com.
I want to talk about the concert that's coming up. A
Sure.
Symphonic Celebration of Home, #1. I love the title.
Thank you.
What inspired it?
Loving Northern Michigan after living here for 10 years. I mean, the very long story short is, as someone who grew up in Philadelphia, that's where I'm from, and I moved here literally 10 years ago. My wife and I, we just celebrated our 10th wedding anniversary.
Wonderful.
So she was one who brought me out here. I fell in love with this area. I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with the lake. I fell in love with the nature. I have just fallen in love with all of it. And so about 3 or 4 years ago, as I was getting back into my singer-songwriter stuff, I wrote this song about Petoskey. This Petoskey song is what I call it. And I made it with a group of musicians and singers that I have, friends. And anytime I would play it anywhere, people loved it. They ate it up.
Yeah.
Probably because I live in Petoskey, right? So, and maybe the music's okay too. I don't know. But the point is that then led to another one. Someone said, you should do a Charlevoix song. I said, okay. And then so I did that. And then I got the opportunity to work directly with the Boyne City students to make a song with them. I co-wrote a song with the Boyne City students about sort of their take on Michigan and Boyne City. And so all of this happened. And we did a concert last year up in Boyne City. And we got video footage, and anyone can listen to it. It's on my Spotify. It's just called Live with Northern Symphonic Winds. I shared that with the executive director, Chad Lindsay, over the Opera House. Yeah. And he was like, I love it. Let's do it here, but let's make it bigger. Yeah. Right? Let's do a full concert, not just like a few songs. Let's do like a whole 75-minute show of all this music that celebrates home, that celebrates the people, that celebrates the region we live in, Northern Michigan, and even like celebrating home away from home. What does home away from home look like to people?
Right.
So that was really the impetus, and that was really the inspiration.
And it also happens to be America's 250th anniversary too.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're celebrating Northern Michigan community, what home means to everyone,
right? And
then also this 250th anniversary,
right?
Northern Michigan, you said for the last 10 years you've fallen in love. What is it about Northern Michigan that keeps inspiring you?
The people. Oh man, you know what it is? I think so much of my life prior to living here, I was surrounded by, just every day was surrounded by musicians and, sort of industry people. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
In fact, people always ask me, they're like, when are you moving to LA or when are you moving to Nashville? I'm like, never, but to go into a coffee shop and to just strike up a conversation with a local, I don't know, woodworker or carpenter or it's very grassroots where I live. And I love it. I love it because there's so much to learn from it, right? All of my ideas are very big and artistic and whatever, but to have a conversation, and my in-laws, they're all plumbers, right? My in-law uncles and aunts, they're all in the trades, and it's just so grounding for me personally,
right?
It kind of keeps my feet on the ground a bit while my head is a little bit lofty.
Yeah.
So I think just the warm atmosphere of the people, I've never experienced it anywhere else, ever.
I will agree. I mean, there is an authenticity here that, especially for someone who grew up in a wonderful place, but also has gone all over, for you to pick up on that authenticity is really inspiring for people who've lived here their whole lives, because I have traveled and I go, there is something special about Northern Michigan.
Right.
And it is the people.
Right.
Yeah.
I know Josh and Jace, those guys from the UK.
Yeah.
They came back to Michigan because they loved it so much. They came back, and so there's something, I don't know what it is. It's just it's a warmth. It's very community driven, right? We have this thing up in Petoskey called Call of the Wall. It happens every Friday morning at 7:00, and we jump off the break wall. We go swimming. It starts from like May to the end of August, and it's like and you just get to know the people, and you just get to know how was work this past week? And there's this element of everyone's got their own life, but they all like to just kind of congregate and share their lives with each other. And I don't know, maybe I just didn't experience that much out on the East Coast, as it were, maybe not as much as I experienced it here.
Sure.
But I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's fantastic. You're going to be joined in this concert by the Northern Symphonic Winds, which you mentioned before, and a string ensemble as well. So how does adding those musicians, when you're thinking about this, actually transform your music?
I think it just brings an element of symphonic power, right? Especially with, we'll have a whole ensemble on stage.
Yeah.
the colors you can use in the music can be so varied, right? You can have a flute or a clarinet or a French horn or saxophone or a tuba. And all these different colors, either independently or combined, I feel like it just takes the whole scale of the experience. It's like watching a movie soundtrack unfolding in real time.
Oh, I
in
love
a way.
that.
So it's like that's just how I think and breathe music, for better or for worse, right? Sometimes people ask, when are you playing like in Beard's Brewery? And I'm like, oh gosh, what's like, how much room do you have to fit all these people in there? So it's like, I think for better or for worse, it limits me to what I can do regularly, but the things that I do get to do, I feel are very special for the people who are there in attendance.
So when people do come in, and are they expecting either a classical concert or a pop concert, and what they're actually going to get is both?
Kind of both.
Yes, I love it.
Kind of both. I mean, I'm just going to say it now. Like, there's even a moment where I quote a little bit of George Gershwin in one of the songs.
That's not bad.
About Traverse City.
There you go.
I don't know why that it happened, but it just did. Well, actually, no, I was actually thinking for that song, for the Traverse City song, I was actually thinking about how many musicians are here, and especially like how many they come to Interlaken to do really intense classical music. So I funneled that into, so I was like, oh yeah, someone out there was probably practicing George Gershwin. So I threw a little bit of George Gershwin in the Traverse City song. But overall, the song is something like you would find Billy Joel. Like it's a Billy Joel meets orchestra kind of song with like a sprinkle of George Gershwin in there. So it's a bit of both and.
And I think that works. I'm really excited about it. One thing I've noticed throughout your work as well is this recurring thread of hope. Would you, I'm thinking about your album, Reflections, Volume 1. It's exploring faith and hope and love during those difficult times. Is that intentional? Are you intentionally trying to bring hope into your music, or is that simply who you are?
It is. I feel like it is a bit of, it's again, both and.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a bit of me and just my life and how I try to look at things. But it's also something that I want to, through my work, bring to other people. Because I think hope is one of the hardest things to have when things are not going well. And again, I won't get into all the nitty gritty details, but I will just say this, that, the life that I've had and, some experiences and grief, there's been a lot of grief in the family and things that it's in those moments that finding hope is the hardest thing to do. But I think there's power in it. Yes. I think there's power in, even if the world feels like it's burning around you. I'm going to butcher this quote, but the from Lord of the Rings, where Gandalf, I think, is talking to Pippin or Merry, like, and basically the whole city is going to be going down. Yeah. Something about, he said, there's always hope, or something of that sort.
Yeah, yeah.
And I feel like ever since I was a kid and saw that movie, I don't know, maybe it instilled something in me, the Tolkien quote there, but that's my life philosophy. It's
almost like the only thing that people can't take away from you. You know? It's like, there's so many things that can happen to you, but you can hold on to these little pieces, and sometimes it's really difficult to do. Right. So to see that sort of that thread through all of your music, even when you are addressing some, difficult times and grief, it's inspiring. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. I just wanted to ask too, I know people are probably listening and saying, Christal, why aren't you telling us how we can get tickets to this? So I want to add right now that this is happening on August 23rd. It is at the City Opera House. You mentioned Chad Lindsay. We love him. And it's great. Happening Sunday, August 23rd at 4:00. It's going to be just an incredible experience, I think. And you can get tickets right now at cityoperahouse.org. Look for the USA Home or under events, USA Home. You can also just Google up a Symphonic Celebration of Home and it'll take you right there. You can get those tickets and, they're very reasonably priced. General admission is $30. If you're a student, a senior, or a military member, it's $20. So wonderful, prices there. And spending an afternoon with somebody who is from Northern Michigan, who's an accomplished musician, really celebrating this community you can't get better than that, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time. We've been rehearsing a bit, and I'm telling, I was sitting in the room again, trying not to get emotional in the first rehearsal for anything is always like a very emotional experience because you're just kind of hearing it for the first time. Like it's lived up here for so long, and then when you throw it in front of musicians, and the clarinetist just takes the first little solo in one of the songs. I was like, oh man, like it's actually, so it's like, it's been pretty cool to see it all come together too.
Oh gosh, I love that. Before we get into our lightning round, which is something I like to do here, I got to ask you, what's the most meaningful thing that someone has ever said to you after hearing one of your compositions?
There's an album I wrote, I don't publicize it too much because it's kind of more of a concept album, but if anyone is really interested in like a bit more of the story of Tony Manfredonia and or like concept album, I have an album called Anchored, which actually talks about like challenges in marriage and also having hope in marriage when times are rough. But someone messaged me and they said, I'm sending this to, I won't say their relationship, they're going to send it to someone, they're having a rocky time in the marriage. And then they got back to me later and they said that the person they sent it to was so grateful that my album reached their ears. I know, I was like, even if I don't make it any further than that moment, I've done my job.
Yeah. Wow.
It blew my mind. It blew my mind.
Incredible. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being vulnerable in your music and being vulnerable in today's interview. And I know all of this emotion and this hopefulness, that's what you hear in the music. That's what you're going to hear in the concert. I want to spend some time on this lightning round, and this is just for fun.
Yeah.
So just kind of like off the cuff, whatever you say is correct.
Yeah.
So I'd like you to finish the sentence. The perfect Northern Michigan day includes
a sunset.
There you go. Yeah, that's easy. I was going to say jumping off the break wall too.
I take back my answer. That's good.
Are you a coffee or tea drinker?
Coffee.
Singers with coffee. That's an interesting one because everyone I knew that was a singer was like, only tea.
Oh, I know. I'm sorry. I can't. I got to have my coffee.
Do you prefer composing in the morning or at night?
I think I prefer it at night, but the way life works, I have to do most of it in the morning.
Yeah.
But I think the nights that I do get to do it, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Got my little lights on. It's like 10 p.m. or whatever.
Yeah. That's really where your artistic brain is flourishing. What's a movie soundtrack that you wish you would have written? Like
yeah. I mean, he's too good. He's too good at what he does. But I would say Star Wars, specifically Episode 3. I know it's the prequels. I'm not going to go on a whole spiel about Star Wars here, but Star Wars Episode 3, John Williams, like one of the most moving Star Wars soundtracks in my opinion.
Yeah.
I also kind of like the film, but I grew up on it.
Yeah,
but,
right.
Man, but again, who can touch John Williams? I mean, he's just like, he's a wizard.
Seriously, he is a wizard. I mean, someone has to find out because he has these magical sorcery powers.
I'm telling you.
It's amazing the stuff he's done.
Yeah.
What's an instrument that you wish you would have mastered?
The cello.
Oh, yeah. God, I love the cello.
I love the cello. Yeah.
What's your favorite place in Northern Michigan?
North Perk Coffee.
Okay.
Downtown Petoskey.
Yeah.
That's whether it's date day with like coffee dates, or whether it's just meeting with a friend or meeting someone new. You know, whatever, just for networking. Like that is kind of
that's your go-to.
I love it. North Perk.
Love that too, North Perk. So if someone is just finding your music for the very first time, what song should they listen to first?
Safety Net.
Safety Net.
It just came out
Okay.
about 10 days ago, and I think it's the perfect representation of what Tony Manfredonia sounds like.
This is Tony Manfredonia,
Yes.
Safety Net.
Yes, Safety Net is a great example.
Oh, that is fantastic. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm really excited about a Symphonic Celebration of Home that's happening on August 23rd, 4 o'clock. You can find your ticket information at cityoperahouse.org. I mean, seriously, I think spend the day in Traverse City and enjoy this incredible music. I'm so excited for this, Tony. Yes, so the concert features Tony alongside Northern Symphonic Winds and a string ensemble and a unique blend of cinematic orchestral music and contemporary songwriting. It's all of it, baby. It's all inspired by Northern Michigan and America's 250th anniversary. Again, tickets are available through the City Opera House. Tony, thanks so much for spending time with us here on The Conversation. It's brought to you by TVC Cherry Capital Airport, your Northern Michigan connection. I'm Christal Frost, and we'll see you next time.
Golden seas fading out of sight, those familiar melodies will I know if I land? What if I never find my way?
Stars illuminating over paths we've yet to find. Every footstep taken leaves the past behind. Will I win this bet? What if I lose my safety net?
Trouble starts to rise, doubts begin to seep. It's hard to know what's right when there's no hand holding me. Trying to spread out my wings, how else will I learn to fly? Paths that start to shine, though I still fear the shadows, they're broken by the light. But I'll win this bet, 'cause I'll learn to be my safety net. The darkness is calling my name, it's trying to keep me safe, but on the horizon I see a flame and it's burning so bright. The fire's alive in my chest, increasingly hard to suppress. Though tides may keep pulling at me, I know that my heart will survive. 'Cause I'll win this bet. Yes, I'll learn to be my safety net. Past the stormy skies is a life in greater hues, tender as the night, oh, lovely as a muse.